Hey, welcome back to the Hey Steph podcast. I am Steph. I'm so happy that you're here. Happy New Year. I want to talk today about how to actually accomplish the goals that you want this year. I thought about doing an episode sharing my own personal goals, and that may still come up through the course of me talking. I don't know. But what I actually felt like I wanted to talk about is how to follow through and accomplish the goals that you have been thinking about. If you have big goals for yourself in 2025, or if you are someone who maybe feels scared to set goals because you have failed in the past, I hope you'll find something helpful for you today on whatever end of the spectrum that you're on, because I want to talk about one way, and probably like the key pivotal way, that I have figured out how to actually accomplish the goals that I set. I'm going to walk you through the very simple system that I use to take my goals and put them down onto an actionable daily level. And I'm going to screen share actually. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm going to talk you through it. But if you want to actually see what I'm showing you, feel free to go over to my YouTube channel where I will put up the full video. It's important to figure out, and maybe this is like a skill of becoming an adult. I feel like now I'm an actual adult because I know how to set goals and follow through. But to make sure I'm not just setting goals in like this dreaming type of way, but actually doing them. So I don't want to talk about like motivation or lofty inspiration or vague advice. I want to get really practical and share how I plan and execute my goals and screen share exactly what I do, so you can see how I program my goals into my daily routine. So we're going to go from goal setting to goal doing. And there may be some room to talk about my actual goals because I love hearing about other people's goals, and maybe you do too. So that will probably come up, but I'm excited for today's episode. Today is actually January 1st. I'm going to record this and like immediately push it out to the internet because this is how the holiday is going, where I'm just like down to the wire, and that's okay. What I've been doing is actually spending a lot of my time planning ahead for the year and brainstorming and dreaming, yes, and planning and figuring out how I'm going to follow through and execute. And you probably are familiar with this feeling at the new year. I don't think it's unique to me. I think a lot of us feel this sense of excitement and rejuvenation, momentum, like who can I be this year? And it's easy to set overly ambitious goals or to set too many goals. Maybe you want to lose weight or write a book or get stronger, and these are all not even just but we want to spend more time with our family. We want to declutter the house. And by February, most of those goals kind of fall off the radar. And I think that's because we set goals just like we make a wish, like we're tossing a penny in a well. Setting goals without making a plan is like writing a to-do list on your shower wall in the steam. Like it's just going to disappear. It's going to evaporate. It's not going to stick, because you have no way to preserve that. And a lot of us, I am included in this because I love the planning stage. I am very motivated. I know what I want. I write it down. And in years past, I have gotten stuck in that stage of just planning, but then going about my day with no clear system of how to make those goals actually happen. And I think there are three main reasons why I have found in my life that goals fail or that I don't follow through on what I want to do. One is a lack of specificity. So oftentimes the goal is too vague, like I want to exercise more, or I want to lose weight in general, or I want to eat healthier, or I want to get more sleep, or I want to be kinder to my family. Like, what does that mean? And how are you going to track that? How are you going to know if you were successful or not? So a lack of specificity is, I think, one of the big barriers to success in goals. Number two is having no plan, no clear when or how the goal will happen, and not putting it into action. And three is overwhelm. And I think this is really common, and probably the main reason is that you feel motivated at first, but when life gets busy, the goal starts to lose its importance, its meaning. It feels unattainable. It feels far away. You're like, how does this even relate to this crazy day that I'm going through? Like, how would I possibly make that happen on a day like today? So I think it's easy to get stuck there and then never get back up again to figure out how to implement that stuff on a daily, like a small moment to moment level. So no matter how big your goal is, I don't think that you need to overhaul your entire life in order to reach your goals. I think there are two main things that you need. One is a clear plan that fits into your life, your actual real life as it is currently, not your dream life, not your future self, not the way you wish your life was, but a plan for your actual life. And number 2 is the discipline to follow through on that plan. Now, that actually I think is a lot easier if you have a clear plan. So I think the clear plan that fits into your daily actual life is maybe like 80% of the battle, and then executing the plan is a much smaller piece, but it feels like the bigger piece when we don't have a very clear plan. So something I like to think about is this idea that if it's not scheduled, it's not real. If it's not planned out, it's not going to happen. Times when you're like, oh my gosh, I accomplished this great thing and I didn't plan on doing that. I don't know that I can even think of an example when that has happened for me. I think that planning ahead is actually the most powerful tool I have found for accomplishing my goals. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I set a goal for, I think, 4 years in a row to get a pull-up. For the first 3 years, did not really have a concrete plan. I was just kind of wishing. I was like, it would be so cool to get a pull-up. I wish I could get stronger. And I was actively strength training, but not with this really clear plan toward specifically accomplishing that one move. Aiming for like general strength is not going to get me to a pull-up. So I had to make an actual plan for specific exercises to do to accomplish that goal. So I think that one of the most powerful tools for accomplishing your goals is your calendar. Now, I am the biggest fan probably in the world of Google Calendar. I live and die by my Google Calendar, maybe to an unhealthy degree. I don't know. One thing I've been thinking about that I'm really excited about and that I want to do in this coming year in this podcast and on Instagram is to talk more about my passion for productivity and these types of like systems and tools that I use, because it's not just about the food or the working out. It's like how I make that happen. And a lot of that happens with just digital tools. So I'm really kind of looking to focus in, like sharpen my camera lens, I guess, on this like productivity meets wellness marriage, because I'm so passionate about those things and they play such a humongous role in my life. It feels kind of weird not to talk about it. So I'm going to show you how I use my Google Calendar. You can apply this to literally any calendar you want. I think a digital one is probably the best bet. How I time block out my priorities. And what I really have found is that by time blocking, by planning ahead, I'm making a commitment to myself. I'm creating a structure that I need to stay consistent. I get a lot of people in my life making fun of me for my Google Calendar because it is intense. So I'm just going to tell you, I've turned a lot of my calendars off to make it less overwhelming visually for you who might be newer to this. But I want to show you how to use your calendar to accomplish your goals. So I'm going to flip over to a screen share view here and clip this microphone to my shirt. Hopefully you can still hear me. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. This is my calendar. I have turned off a lot of the things. If I were to turn on all of my time blocking, every minute of this would be filled in with color. And I love it that way, and it is not overwhelming to me. But what I want to show you is specifically just a couple different calendars that I have and show you how I use these to accomplish my goals. And I'm assuming that before you get to this calendaring stage, you have already done the work somewhere else separately of listing the goals that you want to achieve this year and be very specific. But you need to have your goals written down by the time you come to this place. So I use my Nourished Planner, which I talk about all the time, and I love it so much. And it was so helpful in planning my goals every year. It has been. So write down your goals and get specific. Like I said, instead of saying, I want to get stronger, say, I want to strength train for 45 minutes 3 times a week, or I want to be able to do a full push-up by March. And so here's what I'm going to do. The clearer your goal is, the easier it will be to schedule and track it. And then you're going to break goals into actionable steps. So every big goal, a pull-up, writing a novel, decluttering your house, is just a series of smaller steps. So break those down into daily or weekly actions that you can take. So for example, you can see here, I am working on a novel, and so I have time blocked off every day for writing. One of my goals for 2025 is to write every day. And so that's not just going to happen by itself. I'm not just going to wake up and magically find time in my schedule and in my day to write. And so I came into my calendar, I have a calendar that is color coded, this nice, pretty dark green color, and it is for my writing block. So I have one of these programmed in every day. If I do not have that programmed in, guess how likely I am to hit that goal of writing every day? 0%. I'm not going to write if it's not in my calendar, if it's not blocked off ahead of time. So that big goal of writing a book, and there are times when I come in here and I adjust what it says on the calendar, and I'll say write 1,000 words or edit chapter 28 or whatever it is. I'm breaking down that goal. So break the goals down into a series of smaller actionable steps. But the main thing that I want to show you here is time blocking goals into your calendar. So once you have all of that worked out, you have a plan for the goals, you know about a timeline, and you've broken it down into steps that you can schedule. Now you come to your calendar of choice and plug those actions into your daily schedule. And this is where I think the magic happens. So feel free to open your calendar and do this along with me if you want. Start blocking off time for your goals. I have a weekly block on Sundays for weekly planning. This is when I nail down my meal planning. Oftentimes I will do this earlier in the week, but it is in a set recurring schedule every single week. I don't go and put it in. It is a recurring task that pops up every single week for the rest of time. You can see it's just in there. So this planning meeting becomes non-negotiable. Same thing for my scripture study. I last year got into a really good habit of doing scripture study for 45 minutes every morning. This year I decided I want to add 15 minutes of journaling. So I needed to increase that block of time to a full hour. So I'm not just going to wing that. I'm not just going to assume I can magically find 15 minutes in my schedule. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to increase that time block, and I'm going to say yes, apply to all future events, because again, this is all scheduled out through, like, I just program it through the end of time. And then if I decide to adjust it, like in June or September, if I need to tweak my schedule, I come in here and I do that. But it is all very purposefully planned in. My workouts are scheduled. I have time in for showering. I have time in for my meals, which you might think, wow, that's really neurotic. But you know what? That stuff actually takes time. So for me to know that I am going to have a full 30 minutes to make and eat a breakfast, or a full 45 minutes to make and eat lunch, is a big deal. So you can't see on here, I have my work hours scheduled in. I have time when I record podcasts. I have all the things scheduled in, and I've closed them out for now. Again, just for simplicity's sake, so you can see the things that actually matter relevant to this podcast. Same thing with reading. I want to have time to read. I have a goal to read 25 physical books per year. I'm not probably just going to find magic reading hours, but I wanted to have time for reading before bed. So I made sure to come in here and block off some time for reading. But by using this time blocking schedule, I'm never caught off guard. I'm never caught with my pants down, so to speak, with my goals. I always know that I have time blocked out for things that matter. So then if someone says, hey, do you want to go to lunch? Or hey, can you guys hang out and come to this party? I'm like, well, if I want to do that, then I have to give up something, right? Like something's got to go. And that becomes a measurement of my value system. Like, am I okay giving up my writing block of time for that day for the sake of this other thing? Or am I not? But I have it written down so I can make an informed, intentional decision. And I'm not just caught off guard. I'm not just taking life as it comes. I'm planning ahead for the things that matter most to me. And then I'm making other decisions according to that skeleton structure that I already have built. I could, and maybe will, teach an entire workshop on using Google Calendar to accomplish your goals. But I wanted to give you a little peek at how that works for me. I think the power in this is setting your goals and your priorities as you would an appointment. Just like you set in a doctor's appointment or a work meeting, it to your brain on the calendar, it looks the same. Your brain is giving the same priority to one time block as the other, right? And that's what I love about it. It kind of like neutralizes all of these things to carry the same weight, which might seem like something you wouldn't want, but I actually think it can be really powerful in giving the same visual representation to sit down and eat a healthy breakfast as it does to a work meeting, where you're putting things on there that are worth your time. Obviously, there's room in here for things like relaxing in the evening, or, weekends are a lot less scheduled in my calendar than weekdays are. So there is time, there are gaps in here for doing whatever I want to do, but there's less than there used to be, because what I want to do is not always my first instinct. And it's not always the easiest choice. Like reading a book takes a lot more effort than turning on the television or scrolling through Instagram. So I put it on my calendar to remind myself, like, hey, self, you actually want to do this. Like, this actually is something that is important to you. In that moment, I can always make the decision to say, never mind. So I hope that felt helpful, not overwhelming, but I want to encourage you to use some type of a digital or paper planner or calendar or system to start planning into your day the things that you want to do. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying to schedule out every minute of your day or 15 habits at once. Start with 1 or 2 key goals that you have a solid plan for and focus on making those consistent. Maybe it's a 15-minute block in your calendar every day for connecting with your spouse. I mean, it can be something that feels a little bit ambiguous, but if you set aside time to do it, your brain will help you come up with a solution for using that time wisely. So start small, treat it like a non-negotiable appointment. Once your goal is in your calendar, treat it like a meeting with your boss and show up and do the thing that's planned, even if you don't feel like it. That is so powerful for me. Even if I have to move it later or move it around, like, I really don't want to do this right now, but I'm going to give myself 15 extra minutes. It sounds silly, but holding myself accountable to myself is actually really powerful. And then use buffer time. Build buffer time into your schedule for unexpected interruptions. Be flexible. It looks very rigid at a glance, but it actually is a great way to be able to build flexibility in where I can still see those moving pieces, those blocks that matter most. So if things get thrown off track, I can either move them around or delete them, but it's a conscious decision of how I choose to spend my time. And it's also really helpful in making a plan for the upcoming week. I like to review what I've done. Did I stick to my plan? Is it working? Am I consistently moving this time block to a later spot? Am I consistently deleting something? Why? So I can adjust for the next week and keep going. You've heard this saying a million times, but we all have the same 24 hours in the day. I don't think that we all have the same capability or personality, but to say I don't have time, I don't think is actually a valid excuse for almost anything. It's not about having time, it's about prioritizing time. So use your calendar to identify where you might be wasting time, scrolling social media, binge watching TV, and try to repurpose that time to use it toward your goals. If you want to read books, put time in your calendar for reading books. If you want to start running, put time in your calendar for running. If you want to start grocery shopping, put time in your calendar for when you're going to meal plan and when you're going to grocery shop. Another roadblock to executing on those plans is that we just don't feel motivated. Remember that motivation is fleeting and you don't have to feel motivated in order to show up. Once you've made the plan, it is so much easier to show up and execute because you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not trying to decide what's important to you in the moment. You already have that written down. You already have it planned. And now the you in that moment just has to do the thing. And of course, again, flexibility is hopefully naturally built into this. I think it can look very rigid and inflexible, and it might look that way to you. I mean, when you look at my calendar, you might be like, what is wrong with her? But I really feel like this gives me space to fall off track and get back on again. It's become so much easier for me, and I think that's why I've been more successful at following through and accomplishing my goals, because I have this system of planning ahead in place. Setbacks are part of the process. I'm very forgiving with myself when a day doesn't go according to plan. I'm not like, oh no, you ruined my calendar. It's like, oh well, yay, I get to get around and play in my calendar for a few minutes. That feels motivating to me, but it also allows me to get back up faster and sooner than I would have if I didn't have a plan. So use a calendar or a plan, a time block like this to just start fresh the next day. You have your priorities already written out, and so it's a lot easier to get back on the horse, so to speak. So I hope this feels encouraging and not overwhelming in being a tool for you in achieving your goals. The difference between setting goals and achieving them comes down to this one thing, I think, of planning ahead and then following through on the plan. But planning ahead is the main thing, and your calendar can be the bridge between your intentions and your reality. So by time blocking your priorities and showing up for yourself, you will be able to accomplish more than you ever thought possible. So here's your one action step that I want you to take today. Open up your calendar and block off time for one goal that you want to work on just this week. You don't have to do a for the rest of time recurring appointment, just a small thing. Just if you don't already use a time blocking system in this way, try it out. You don't have to go down like the productivity YouTube time blocking rabbit hole, although you might like it. I do. But create time, create space in your schedule for one thing that you want to work on, and make sure that you have time set aside for that. I would love to hear if you want to share any of your calendar or planning ahead wins. You're always welcome to come say hi and message me on Instagram. I'm there at HeyStephWebb, and tell me about your calendar. I would love to cheer you on. Happy New Year. I hope this is your best year yet. I am absolutely planning on it being my best year yet, and I'm excited to keep spending time here with you. Thank you so much for being here with me and listening, and I will talk to you next week.